of doing it by foot. And of course, the issue is what the regime wants to do is get some sort of traffic flow back through Tahrir Square, which is why the military have been asked to edge forward all the time. That isn't going to happen anytime soon, it's quite obvious. But what I also want to bring to you is this information we're receiving about a petition that's being put to the Prosecutor General. This actually relates, and it's I mean, this is unprecedented. Who would think that Mubarak and his family would be accused of stealing state funds? I'm going to interrupt you because we are indeed going to be talking about. Yes, I'm going to interrupt you because we are going to talk about that legal action that 20 lawyers have lodged against the regime for stealing state wealth. The protesters gathering outside Parliament, the Shura Council, apparently the Interior Ministry as well. But right now on the phone with us is Mr. Ibrahim Yusri. He's a lawyer who drafted this petition that Andrew was just talking about. He says 40 prominent figures have signed it. Let's speak to him. Mr. Yusri, thank you very much for speaking to us. First, tell us more about this legal action that you're lodging against the regime. What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, I think Mr. Mubarak and his family had the right to speak and to explain either if they have gathered this fortune, or that is only rumors which need verification. So I drafted it to the Prosecutor General, and I'm joined by about 40 prominent figures. And we are asking the Prosecutor General to take necessary measures to verify if these information are true. And if it is true, they must be prosecuted, they must be tried, and the fortune should be retaken by the people.
Well, this is certainly unprecedented, what you're trying to do here, Mr. Yusri.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Mr. Yusri?
Yes. From the legal
I'm sorry, the phone line is not very good. But again, what you're trying to do is certainly very unprecedented in Egypt. Don't you fear any perhaps challenges ahead as to what you're trying to accomplish?
I know there are a lot of challenges, but we are just taking a legal step which is legitimate. We are asking the Prosecutor General to verify if these news are true or not. If it is true, then he must proceed and ask them to give their statements, and then they go to court, and then they should be punished, and the fortune should be.
What exactly do you suspect the Mubarak regime of having stolen? Give us a better idea, perhaps, of what you're complaining about exactly.
No, you mean what the information gathered from The Guardian and some German magazine, and also Forbes, and all these things are bringing Mr. Mubarak's family as the second richest man in the world. And we are a very poor country. If this is true, this is a dilemma. If this is not true, it will be okay. But Mr. Mubarak has the right, he and his family, to clear themselves of this accusation, or to submit themselves to law.
Okay, and when do you expect to hear a response from the prosecutor on this complaint?
Well, that depends on the Prosecutor General. I know that there is a difficulty because the President has immunity under the Constitution. But we are presuming that the legitimacy of the President is down, and that the Constitution, nobody can protect the President and his family from being prosecuted. And because this is a new era, and this is a revolution, and then if the Prosecutor General could either overlook it because of the immunity of the President, or he could only ask the family of the President who are not immune from prosecution, or he can forget all about it at all.
Okay. Well, we thank you for coming on Al Jazeera and telling us about this petition that you've launched again against the regime for allegedly stealing state wealth. That was Ibrahim Yusri, a lawyer who drafted this petition. Thank you very much, Mr. Yusri, for speaking to us. We're watching there again live pictures of Cairo's Tahrir Square, where the mood is again very much upbeat today, this Tuesday on day 15 of anti-government demonstrations there. Let's go live to our correspondent Hoda Abdelhamid, who's overlooking Tahrir Square. Hoda, you know, we were saying just 2 hours ago that the mood was much calmer, it was peaceful and so on, but the chants are once again very loud in Tahrir Square there. How does this rally today compare to the previous rallies?
Certainly, compared to yesterday, I would say that a double amount of people are there, and there's a double amount of energy as well on the square. I think also today there's a new kind of people who have joined these protests, civil servants, teachers, people who maybe wouldn't have come here in the past few days. So certainly for the organizers of all this, today is a day where they scored a point. Today is a day where they feel that their message is actually being heard in a wider circle than they originally thought. I mean, this is for today. We'll have to see what happens in the next few days.
Indeed.
They are also organizing themselves very well to try to counter the propaganda of the government. The propaganda of the government goes from the top down, whereas they feel the pulse of the people and try to adapt to that.
We heard earlier, Hoda, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we heard reports of protesters gathering outside the Parliament, the Shura Council and the Interior Ministry as well. Are you hearing anything about that, or are most of the demonstrations once again concentrated in Tahrir Square, which has really become, what, ground zero for these anti-government demonstrations?
Well, I did hear several reports that I cannot confirm because I'm not seeing them. I did hear one that said that the 6th of April movement was heading towards a television building. I really cannot confirm that from my vantage point, but I do think that in Cairo, at least, Liberation Square remains the epicenter. Now, we are also hearing, and those are confirmed reports, about protests in the wider Egypt, in Upper Egypt, in the town of Asyut and Aswan, in Alexandria, and in many more smaller towns. So certainly there is another Egypt that is not here on Liberation Square but is protesting as well.
Other people who are in Tahrir, you tell us that they're very much determined still, but do they feel, Hoda, that they're achieving anything by continuously demonstrating in Tahrir? I almost want to say that they need to take their movement to another level now, to another stage.
Well, they were aware of that over the past few days, and I think they started taking their movement to the next stage. They did form this coalition of movements that will represent all of them, something between 12 to 20 young people who have been chosen to represent them. They do feel, however, that they have to keep the protest here on Liberation Square as long as they can. And actually, one of the slogans that are being chanted today are, "We are not leaving you, leave first. We are not leaving you, leave first." So there is a determination for them to continue as long as they can, and also because they want to make sure that they didn't go so far and then get nothing in return. And I keep on repeating myself all the time about this lack of trust with the government. So they need to see more concrete steps for that.
Okay, Hoda, we'll leave you there for now. As you said, the demonstrations are not just taking place in Cairo, the Egyptian capital, but also in the second largest city, Alexandria. That's a picture from Alexandria, I believe. Let's speak now to Jamal El-Shail, who's reporting there for us. Jamal, give us an idea of the scene in Alexandria today.
Well, Fody, there are tens of thousands of people still gathered here in Alexandria as we enter the third week of these anti-government protests. Alexandria obviously has been a flashpoint several times throughout these unprecedented unfolding scenarios in Egypt. Here just a few minutes ago, those leading the chants announced what they claimed was the latest news from Cairo. They said that the protesters in Cairo, some of them had now surrounded the Parliament and Upper House. and that led to huge cheers amongst the crowds here, who continue in their chants and their defiance of the government. The sentiment here, one of the banners I was just reading just a short while ago said, "I'm sorry I didn't come to protest before, but now I have seen the light." A clear reference to a lot of sentiment felt by many people in Alexandria following the release of Wa'il Ghanem and one of the most famous talk shows here in Egypt, Al-Ashara Masa'an, late last night, which really had an impact on many Egyptians and forced a lot more to come out to the